Today we're here with the title company. We're here with Heather from Fidelity National Title. When you think about real estate, there's really three different relationships. You have a loan officer, a real estate agent, and a title company. So today I wanted to bring her in here and kind of explain as a seller or as a buyer, kind of what they do and how they're involved in the real estate transaction. So there's the three main relationships with title. Let's talk about the seller side. What do you guys do for the seller?
With sellers, as soon as we get the contract from the real estate agent, that's kind of where we enter the transaction. Then we pull a title report, and what that is a search on the property. That brings up any liens, encumbrances, mortgages, judgments, anything that could potentially be something that they call it a cloud on title. So anything that would need to be taken care of prior to the transaction closing and us being able to issue a title insurance policy.
Okay, so hold on a second. So at the very beginning you said when you get the contract, if I'm thinking about selling my home, is it a good idea to start the title process before I put it on the market and get a contract?
Yes.
Why?
In fact, that's a great point, because there's a lot of agents. Well, we work with a lot of real estate agents, but we also do work with a lot of for sale by owners. So it's a great idea to know what's there prior to you putting a house on the market. When you're going to a listing appointment, we do a lot of that. We research a little bit to give you an idea of what's there. But then once we actually do a full title search, then you really have an accurate description of what that property looks like and if there could be any potential issues. So you want to get out of the way things that could actually be time consuming to have to clear. So if there's federal tax liens, things like that, those actually take a little more time. So You would want to know about those prior to listing a house, especially if you got a cash buyer on your property.
Yeah.
They're ready to close in a week or 10 days. We have a lot of resources because this has actually been something that's come up quite a bit recently, but one of those being a probate attorney. If there is somebody on title that has passed away, then that is something that we have to go through. Depending on how title is held will depend on if a probate is something that would need to happen, or if it's a little more simple and we will just need like a copy of a death certificate and then have an affidavit signed at closing.
So that's kind of your guys' responsibility. So let's say I've cleared all that stuff up. I've got my information to you. I got an offer's accepted. What happens? What do you guys do behind the scenes?
When you think of insurance, you think of, your home and auto insurance. And when you're being insured with those things, you're being insured from that point forward. So anything that's potentially going to happen. When you're selling a home and you are required to have title insurance, so as a seller, you have owner's policy that you're issuing, and that's your responsibility.
So the seller pays for an owner's policy
The
buyer?
Pays for the owner's policy for the buyer,
Okay.
insuring the buyer. And then a buyer has the lender's policy. And so
then the buyer pays for a policy for the lender.
Correct.
Okay.
But that policy is something that is insuring that individual from the point that they take title and back.
So when you reach out to a seller, are you getting information? You're getting information from them and checking their information?
Yes.
Like a social?
Yes.
Their details, kind of doing like a background check on them.
Yep.
So you can issue a policy.
Yes. We want to take care of any loans that are there. And there's a lot of things that have come up too, is that maybe when as a seller, you purchased the property, maybe there was prior loans that actually hadn't been cleared and proper documents that had been recorded to release those prior loans. And so those will show up, and those are things that then we are responsible to make sure are taken care of.
Okay. So now let's say everything's done. You guys have cleared everything. The day of closing comes for the sellers and for the buyers. What do you guys do? Like if I because I'm transferring my money to not the lender, not the real estate agent, I'm transferring it to you guys. Why do you guys?
Yes. We are the third party in the transaction. So an unbiased third party is what we're referred to.
Once everyone's signed, then you guys kind of,
Yes.
what do you do after that?
That's when we send everything back to, on a buyer's side, if they have a loan that they're doing, we send all of those documents back to the lender. We're working and coordinating with the lender to make sure that everything is approved on their end so that they can then issue the wire, and then that we have approval to disperse that wire, those funds.
Okay.
And that is the money that pays the seller, that pays
Okay.
everybody and everything in the transaction.
So when I go and close on the paperwork at settlement, are we done?
No. That's settlement.
Okay.
And then we have closing, which is the final when everything is recorded. So once the document and title transfers to the new buyer, then that is when things are recorded and that's considered closing.
All right, so if I'm thinking about selling my home, I really want to start title like right away, whether I'm an agent selling the home for the buyers or the sellers, or for sell by owner looking just to sell my home. I want to start title ahead of time,
Yes.
because if I let's say I put my home on the market and sell it for 400,000, but I owe 420, now I'm in a contract with a buyer. Legally, I'm bound to sell that home. But if I owe 420 on it and I only got 400, I'm in trouble
Right.
for that signed contract.
Right.
So we really want to start the title process early on in the process and get all that worked
Just
out.
to know you're in a better position for negotiating.
A big thing that we see a lot now are solar panels. You get solar panels put on a roof. How does that transfer title?
So what typically happens when you are getting solar on your house, they tell you it does not affect the title of your home. However, they do record a document. It's called a UCC document.
Okay.
And that actually is clouding title. And so it is something that has to be taken care of at the time of closing. So one, it either needs to, if there's still an outstanding amount for that, the solar panels, then you have the ability to transfer that to the new buyer, but that has to be part of your agreement and negotiations. So
Okay.
good thing to know before you actually are putting your
Like
house.
who's paying what, yeah.
If you have an amount, then you're hoping that the buyer wants to take over that. But the buyer doesn't have to. I mean, that's not a requirement unless you're making that a requirement of the listing.
Okay.
Otherwise, the solar usually gets paid off through closing. And so when you're looking at the amount and you're looking at a bottom line, when you're paying off solar, that has to be accounted for.
Let's say the buyer is transferring it, or the
Okay.
seller's transferring it to the new
Then
buyer, and they're in charge of
there'll
that.
be some communication that us as the title company, because a lot of the solar companies they don't like to work with title companies for some reason. And so they prefer, or they require, that the seller themselves actually contact the solar company. And so we help with that whole scenario, but we would need your help in contacting them and communicating with them.
Let's talk about, let's say I'm closing on a home and it's just me on the loan. And I have my partner that wants to go ahead and be on the loan, but she's not, or not on the loan, but be on title in case something happens. Can we do that at title?
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
how's that done?
So when you're buying a house and you have just one of you that's on the loan, and then you want to add somebody to title, then there's an extra document. It's just a deed that we would do that you as the buyer would sign, adding whoever it is that you want to add to title.
And I get asked that all the time. Like, hey, I want to add on for the benefit of having a spouse or someone
Yes,
on
which
title.
is smart, and you'd want to do that.
It can be smart, but also you got to be careful doing that too, because
Right.
once I add someone to title, as if I'm the one that said, hey, I want to add you to title, how do I get you off title? Can I just
Right.
go ahead and sign a paper and get you off title?
No, that person would then, from that point forward, need to sign any document.
So I need 2 signatures now
Correct.
to get them off. And if that person doesn't want to get off title, I'm in trouble.
Right.
Okay, or if they have
Yeah.
judgments or things
So
again.
you'd want to be really secure in that relationship to know that you're
Okay.
going to be in a good place when you need to have
Okay.
them sign something.
Perfect. So let's talk about, because I get this question asked a lot, non-disclosure state. Do you know what that means?
Yes. And Utah is a non-disclosure state.
What does that mean?
So we do the purchase price of homes are not disclosed to the public.
Okay.
So
So
that's part of
when
that.
you guys record it at the county, you don't put in 400,000 or
Correct.
600,000. What do you put in?
There is standard verbiage that says $10, another good and valuable consideration.
Okay.
So a lot of people will say, I didn't just sell my property for $10, and that's just a standard verbiage that's on your deeds that are signed.
And the reason why I bring this up, because it's important, I think, because state of Utah, people go online and try to figure out the values of their home, but if their home value, if some company's giving them a home value, just an auto-generated home value, how are they getting that information? Because it's not disclosed.
Right.
And all of the information is usually put into our system, which is an MLS system that agents
Right.
use and appraisers use.
Right.
And that's where we determine the value.
Yes.
Where home values sometimes, it can be auto-generated, but I think in Utah you have to be careful because we are a non-disclosure state,
Right.
and it's kind of hard sometimes to auto-generate those values.
Right.
Would you agree on that?
Agree.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, today we're here with Heather from the title company. So if you have any questions about title, she is your girl to reach out to her. send me a DM or send me your information and I'll get you in contact with her.
Awesome.